The Saskatchewan real estate market is super hot right now. A number of markets are saying that was the biggest August they've ever had. And we also are not putting any more units on the market. Josh Boettcher, Saskatoon Realtor, joins me this week to break down the stats, talk about why this is happening, and what you can do as a purchaser to help prepare for this. Hope you enjoy.
This is the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, the show that highlights Saskatchewan real estate. Looking to buy your first house, your next investment property? Subscribe to never miss an episode. Here's your host, Ron Caroni.
Hello and welcome back to the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast, your home for all things Saskatchewan and all things real estate. If you're looking for more content just like this, make sure to like this video and subscribe to never miss our weekly episodes that come out every single Monday. It was a hot summer in Saskatchewan, a little smoky, but real estate was also incredibly hot over summer of 2023. And here to help me explain some of this is Saskatoon Realtor Josh Boettcher. Josh, you're a past guest now, but quickly give us an introduction if anyone hasn't been introduced to you before.
Thanks a lot for having me, Ron. My name is Joshua Boettcher, and I am the owner of Moulin Boettcher & Associates at Coldwell Banker Signature. We are the number 7 team in all of Canada for 2022. At Coldwell Banker.
So basically, Josh, we had a super hot market in Saskatchewan. Just take us through some of these stats here.
If we're looking at a base overview, Ron, we're looking at Saskatchewan as a whole. And as a whole, we had record high sales. We had over 1,600 in the month of August. That's a year-over-year increase of 11% and roughly 25% above 10-year long-term trends.
So that means that we're not even talking about the COVID highs anymore. We're talking about this is higher than all averages. We're seeing extreme tight market conditions right now.
Yeah, we are. These market conditions are actually the tightest they've been since 2007. That's a long time, man.
That is a long time. Take us through a bit of what happened in August, because this was kind of the headline number here. This is what a lot of people were reporting on in the news and talking about on social media.
Well, as a province as a whole, we had massive sales in August, but they were met with a pullback of listings, which created an even larger decrease in inventory, specifically in Saskatoon.
If we look at some specific markets, Josh, what can we extrapolate from the numbers?
Well, it's kind of a mixed bag, Ron. Year-over-year sales growth happened in Regina, Saskatoon, and Yorkton region. Year-over-year region sales decline is pretty much everything else. So Prince Albert, Melfort, and a couple others. Benchmark prices increased to record highs in Prince Albert, Melfort, and Humboldt. And we had benchmark prices decline somewhat in Saskatoon, Regina, and a few other major centers.
So that's really interesting, because even though we're having these record numbers and record sales, a slight pullback on that. What are the numbers telling us about that? Even is that something to do with interest rates? We're having a hard time for borrowers to qualify for a little bit more of these home prices.
Well, I mean, absolutely. Like, provincial month supply has dropped below 4 months across the province, below 3 months in Regina, and I think below 2 months now in Saskatoon. And I think a big factor for that is obviously interest rates. Interest rates are pushing people to lower thresholds. We've seen a massive amount of action in the sub 400,000 category. So by and large, that's driving a big chunk of the competition. So it's not necessarily houses are selling for less. We're just selling less expensive houses.
And so that means that if you are a person who's looking in that price range of house, it's really tough to find something right now, and you're going to have to do a very multiple offer situation. But does that also mean that maybe there are some opportunities if we go above that price range?
Yeah, there are. I mean, typically speaking, it's a strange marketplace, and I can only speak from firsthand experience. I've had listings that I've put out at $600,000 that I thought would be gone first day on market, and it took 11 showings to sell them. All while asking for feedback. There was no real dislikes to the properties. They're just don't seem to be moving in certain price ranges, and they seem to really be moving in other price ranges. And obviously, when interest rates go from what we had in 2020, 2021, we're seeing the 2% and 3% interest rates versus people are getting 5% and 6.5% interest rates now. Your purchasing power is dwindled dramatically. That being said, people don't want to rent forever. Rental prices, specifically in Saskatoon, as you can attest to, have risen dramatically. And people are thinking, well, geez, you know what? I don't really want to buy right now with interest rates being the way they are. But you've said it best yourself. You date the rate, you marry the house. So your rate can always change. And some people are thinking maybe it's just a better time to get in now rather than wait for this to be over. And a lot of the reason to that is we've got a lot of factors affecting us. I mean, Saskatchewan continues to benefit from its affordability, job security, record population growth, and international migration. But all those things, while driving housing prices up, also drive rent up. So then it becomes a question of, do you increase your rent payment, or do you just bite the bullet, get into a mortgage now and refinance in a few years and hoping that the rates get a little bit better?
Well, and that is the thought. If you kind of look at these long-term charts of what happens as we start to enter recessionary periods, there's always a drop in rate. And so now it's a matter of, if you're a person who's entering the housing market right now, there's a bit of fear, like, am I locking into something for a really long time? But now you just have to do some deeper planning. And what are you going to do if and when rates do come down? But very tricky. And, there is that thought of maybe I just, pull back and I rent for a little while. It's hard to find a rental though.
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you it from a landlord perspective, and I can tell you it from a perspective of having clients and other consumers come to me saying, Josh, do you know any rental options? And I said, you know what, guys, let me reach out to my sphere. But the reality is, it's a slim chance. It's a very, very slim chance you're going to get something that you want within your budget for rental. Same goes for real estate. What we were comfortable paying last year is not the same as this year. It has changed. I think to the tune of somewhere, our benchmark price has changed somewhere in the tune of 3.5–4% in Saskatoon. So you're going to have to pay a little bit more for what you would have bought last year for a little bit less.
Let's talk about some of the broader factors that are kind of going into this, like really hot real estate market. Prices kind of fluctuating a little bit. Maybe we're not seeing the prices jump as much as we might expect with this low amounts of inventory. But what is going on in Saskatchewan? Like someone watching this video in Ontario and BC, and they're kind of looking at this and they're saying, hey, we're seeing decreases in our bigger centers, but you guys are kind of just chucking along. What's happening in Saskatchewan that's leading into the stability in real estate and ultimately a large portion of people trying to get in?
I think the simple way to put it, man, is let's use an analogy. If Vancouver and Toronto are the stock market, Saskatchewan is the bond market. We're not going to get you massive gains, but we're not going to get you massive losses. We're going to ride a continuous gradual growth upwards, and we're affordable, which is why we've become a major center for investors. Cash flow is really good here. You have a really easy time finding properties, and you have a really easy time finding tenants.
Right. And if you compare those prices between a Vancouver and a Toronto, we're still miles cheaper than they are.
It's night and day. I mean, I think our benchmark price is around $378,000, $379,000. And I wouldn't venture to say what theirs are, but I'm going to guess it's north of $1 million.
Yeah, depending on the different types of property. And a lot of this kind of ties into, we've touched on this in past podcast episodes, but just an extremely strong Saskatchewan economy that even if we kind of head into this recessionary period, and I think that's kind of what people are preparing for, but there was a really great segment by Paul Martin where basically he pointed out that in 2008, there was one little part of the world that did really well in the last global recession, and that was Saskatchewan. And so even as we kind of continue to move forward here, even if the rest of the world slows down, there is a really good chance that we have the economy to kind of just push through all of this.
Yeah, we do. We'll do the same thing as we did last time. And there's a couple of major factors that go hand in hand with that. A couple of our bigger sectors. So let's talk about energy and mining and agriculture for a second. Agriculture is a massive, massive sector for us. I think last year we did north of 20 billion in exports. So over 50% of Saskatchewan's GDP was in agriculture. Of the same note, we probably employ somewhere around 35,000 people in the agriculture sector, and maybe a little bit more than that. And it would probably be something similar in mining. So if you think of all the adults aged 18 and plus, we're probably somewhere in the 10 to 15% of our entire population works between energy and mining and agriculture. Two industries that aren't going anywhere on.
No,
everyone needs heat and everyone needs potash to fertilize what they're growing. It is what it is.
And there's a lot of projects that are happening, even they're a lot smaller than what the potash and agriculture industries are. But if you go into the minerals, the helium, the uranium, the gold, the diamonds, like a lot of this stuff is mined and produced right here in Saskatchewan. And we have a very small population, so we don't end up using a lot of the things we produce. We send it somewhere else in the world, and we collect the rent back, if you would. And so we produce a lot of the things, and then we're low importers of stuff, and that works perfectly. Whether it's an inflationary environment or you have a global slowdown, we're still selling the things that people need to buy.
Yeah. Long story short, Ron, Saskatchewan equals stability. You want to find a good place to park your money in uncertain times? There isn't a better option than here, and specifically Saskatoon, the center of our province, where we typically find the most predictable real estate prices. I know I put my money there. I know you put your money there. I think it's a good place for everyone to put their money.
You and I have kind of debated this off camera a little bit. I did want to kind of do this as a counterpoint, not to just oversell someone that real estate is always going to go up. And I think I was kind of making the point that a lot of real estate and finance is all based on liquidity. And if liquidity dries up, prices will come down. And so give us your take on that, and I'll kind of give you the counterpoint.
I completely understand your perspective, saying if liquidity dries up, prices will come down. It's the same as any other market. When you're looking at a hot stock, the first thing you look at is liquidity. How much liquidity does it have? No different than crypto. If it doesn't have the liquidity, you're not going to see those wild 100x gains that all the gurus are yelling are going to happen on YouTube. Liquidity is important. But in the broader spectrum, I think last year Saskatchewan had over 31,000 newcomers, so record population growth. The reality is, if we don't have places to put people in houses, yet we're still bringing them into the province, what does that do to the demand for housing? We have the employment, so dollars are going to be generated somewhere. What does that do for demand for rent, and what does it do for demand for housing? I just don't see a world or a feasible world where we can produce enough housing to keep up with our demand.
Mm-hmm. What I would like people to keep in mind is whenever you're buying a piece of real estate, and you do have to renew this multiple terms in the future, is what are you going to do if it's really hard to access finances in the future? So like, just as we're dealing with right now, interest rates are really high. And so it becomes an affordability thing. And so if we're in a place in a recession where liquidity is very small and it's really hard to get loans, your lines of credit dry up, how will you fund and stay in these properties? Now, I think if we're in a situation like that, it's bad everywhere. So this is not going to be like a Saskatchewan specific things that happen. It's going to be bad in Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, anywhere you go in Canada. But as a point, always think about the long term of owning a property and how am I going to own this in the future. Now, I would fully expect that interest rates are going to come down from where we are now. Again, anyone's best guess of when exactly that happens. But I think we are uniquely positioned that we do have that incredibly strong labor and job market, as well as that healthy immigration to balance all of these different factors out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to piggyback off your point, if the banks stop lending money, well, that's a big problem for everyone. That sounds like a bit of a doomsday scenario. It could happen. It could happen, but I think we're poised and positioned where the banks are going to make money, the consumers are going to make money. I think we're going to keep on trucking. I don't see it as a bleak scenario. Let's put it that way.
Awesome. Okay, so what's your forward guidance to someone who says, should I wait? Should I buy now? I think the other key point of this is we don't see a lot of houses being built right now. And so there's not enough stock also coming onto the market. So give us your prediction of future prices. Is now the right time to buy? And should someone get in basically as soon as they're able to?
Well, I'm going to be beating a dead horse, but you know my answer to this. Right now, the best time to get into real estate was yesterday. The next best time is today. If you've got the money to park somewhere, I would say buying into real estate is an excellent investment, especially being that it's uncertain times. If you can find a place that has a suite or has suite capabilities, that is an excellent option. You have something that's going to cover a large portion of your mortgage. Like we mentioned, coupled with raising rent increases, it's not unheard of for a lot of two-bedroom basement suites throughout the city to be getting $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 a month. That is a large portion, and that's going to cover a lot of your heavy interest payments from these raising interest rates. I think that is the smartest bet. A lot of people still want to get into the single family home segment, and I would still say that is a good idea, just based on the price action that we're having in the immigration. As long as we don't see as long as we don't see the bank stop lending money, I think that anyone who buys into real estate now is going to be very happy in 5 to 7 years.
Anecdotally, what I'm also kind of seeing as I browse the MLS is there's actually quite a few of those basement suited units popping up. And I would say probably that's a lot of people who were investors, like they didn't live in the property. They had the top and the bottom suite, and now they're turning that back over to the residential side. Now, would you agree in the sense that because we've seen these increase in rates, that maybe someone's cash flow has dried up a little bit, but those properties still make a ton of sense for people who are buying a primary residence who are looking for that true mortgage helper?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. A lot of people probably had to renew rates or took variable rates maybe when they shouldn't have. And that's definitely hurting their bottom line. At the end of the day, a lot of investors are in this for strictly cash flow purposes. And if it's not cash flowing, if it's costing you every month, they're thinking, okay, where can I put my money that's going to better situate me? I mean, you and me were talking about money markets the other day. You can invest in a relatively low fund, and you can get 4.5%, 5%. And that's guaranteed income. And they're thinking, well, sure is a lot less stress than being a landlord.
For sure. Yeah. And maybe do you just take that money out, cash it out, and wait and see for a little while?
Exactly. It's uncertain times. And a lot of people are in a position where they've got lots of capital and they say, well, why take the risk?
Wonderful. Any last points on the Saskatchewan market, specifically in Saskatoon? Anything to add before we wrap it up today, Josh?
You know what, Ron? I don't think so. I'm just going to hammer this home. I think that buying homes with basement suited options for the next 2, 3, 4 years is an excellent idea. With the way inflation has hit us, the cost of gas, the cost of groceries, the cost of living in general, everyone is feeling the pinch somewhat. And there's one surefire way to get rid of that, and that is to have someone else help on your mortgage. That's going to take a lot of stress off of you at the end of the day.
Yeah, for anyone who's a student of Robert Kiyosaki, his big thing is your home is not an asset. And the reason being property taxes, mortgage payment, insurance, it costs you every money to own that home. Now, one way of countering that is if there is an income portion to your property. Now, maybe it doesn't cover all of your expenses, but maybe if it covers your property taxes, a little bit of your mortgage and your insurance, it keeps you in the game long enough, and it allows you to ride out these economic tough times.
Yeah, and you know what? If you're not a person that needs to live in luxury, an excellent option is to buy a place and you yourself can live in the basement suite and rent out the upstairs. I've seen lots of people do that, and I mean, doomsday scenarios have happened. I've had clients that have lost their jobs that have purchased a house and they live in the basement suite, and the pinch isn't that dramatic. They put their 20% down. They have basically their whole mortgage covered by the upstairs tenant. At the end of the day, they're left paying, on a $450,000 house, you're left paying $800-900 a month for all your expenses. Well, that seems relatively affordable.
Right. And your mortgage is still being paid down every month. Yes. There's a bit of principal payment there. And just as a mortgage sideline for anyone who's listening to this, they can actually be a big benefit to you helping qualify in these tough times. There are some lenders who allow you to take off things like property taxes and heat on your calculation, as well as add back some potential income from that rental suite to help you qualify for that home. So if anyone's telling you at your bank or you're not getting enough of an appraised value for your pre-approval, make sure you're working with a mortgage broker who understands that, lenders like MCAP, RMG, Manulife, they'll allow different calculations than your typical lenders and give you so much more qualification room. So we'll leave it there, Josh. Last time you were on, we asked for a piece of advice for people in Saskatoon. I'm a new dad. How about some life advice for new fathers out there?
Well, Ron, as you know, my daughter is 13 months old actually today. So what I can tell you over the last year is my biggest mistake was biting off more than I could chew, trying to balance out having multiple income properties, running a real estate team that's grown to 11 people now. And I can tell you, man, if there's one thing I sacrificed, it was absolutely my sleep. 100%. So don't bite off more than you can chew, and just continue to grow your business stably, because you do a damn good job of it.
Catch as many naps as you can in the meantime. Awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you're sleeping 4 hours a night, don't worry. You'll have a catch up on Saturday where you zonk out for 6 hours. It happens.
I got 7 hours last night, so I'm feeling pretty good. Just to wrap it up here, Josh, if someone is in the market for a home in Saskatoon, your team is much bigger than Saskatoon. So just run us through how you can help folks who are looking to buy or sell in the different markets in Saskatchewan.
If anyone is looking at Saskatoon and area or anything north all the way up till Waskesiu, Candle Lake, Emma Lake, we cover that entire section of the province. The way you can reach us is by going to www.saskatoonrealestate.com, or you can email me, josh@saskatoonrealestate.com, or you can reach me by phone number 306-747-9388.
Don't forget about your basement suites. That'll be the key to making things a lot easier for you as we kind of whatever comes in the next couple of years. Thank you so much for your time, Josh. We'll get you on again before we wrap up the podcast season for the year, but always appreciate your insights.
You betcha, buddy. Thanks a lot for having me.
Thanks for checking out this episode of the Saskatchewan Real Estate Podcast. I hope you liked it, found some value here. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe to never miss our future episodes that come out every single Monday. If you are in the market for a home purchase, a renewal, or refinance in Saskatchewan, I'm a fully licensed mortgage broker and would be happy to help you in these turbulent times. Until next week, I'm Ron Corona, your Saskatchewan mortgage professional. Bye for now.